Snorkels, the pros and the cons, by Dr. Neil Pollock, performed by Dr. Frans Cronje. The snorkel has been considered a standard piece of diving equipment for decades. It provides the simple but useful ability to swim face down on the surface without having to lift your head to breathe. Snorkels can also conserve compressed gas for the dive and help minimize accidental water intake in rough waters when breathing through the regulator is not an option. The impact of snorkels is not all positive though. They are a source of drag in the water, which is not a good thing when they tug on the mask, a decidedly critical piece of equipment. They can also be a source of entanglement, for example with kelp or with hair. And they can be incompatible with some equipment configurations. So, what to do? The pro position. A snorkel provides an option that can be helpful in normal situations. This is a straightforward argument. When a snorkel is needed, it's likely to be needed quickly, so having it readily available is a valid choice for preparedness. How about the cons? Well, the need for a snorkel is low when carrying ample gas supplies, or when you're on sites where surface swimming is unlikely and where entanglement is likely, like wrecks or caves, or where they offer little utility, such as ice. There's also the irritation of it getting in the way when hanging from the mask, which makes it less desirable. So where to put it? Since the hose for most open circuit regulators comes over the right shoulder, a snorkel is usually left inobtrusively mounted on the left side of the mask. Closed circuit equipment has large hoses, however, and they are on both sides of the head. So keeping the snorkel in a pocket or pouch is the best option then. How about design features? Well, there is a wide variety in snorkel design, and they've been marketed with simple J shapes to complex tubes for streamlining, reducing water entry, and facilitating clearing. A long, straight J-tube snorkel is probably not desirable because of the increased risk of entanglement. Snorkels with a curved upper tube typically provide a better profile. The bore, that is the internal diameter, and the length of the snorkel is also important. A large bore offers less resistance but brings fresh air to the alveoli where gas exchange occurs. However, it requires a bigger respiratory volume so that the upper airway and snorkel adds to the so-called functional dead space. This dead space can increase carbon dioxide and cause hyperventilation. This isn't a problem if the volume air breathed is sufficient to bring in the required fresh air. However, carbon dioxide will accumulate if the breathing volume is too small, forcing the user to stop breathing from the snorkel quite quickly. A long skinny tube, think of a garden hose here, is unworkable as a snorkel. Its volume and the difference in pressure from the surface and the lungs makes it impossible to breathe, unless you're really shallow. Drawing the air a long way down from the surface just isn't practical. So a simple rule of thumb is that you should easily be able to put your thumb in it. Well, maybe a bit more for small hands. And the snorkel should not be longer than those typically sold by reputable manufacturers. An early effort to try and keep water from entering the snorkel, which meant you didn't have to clear it all the time, was to put a 180-degree bend on the top, covered with a basket holding a ping-pong ball. In theory, this would block water from entering the snorkel. It was a creative idea, but it wasn't very effective, and the chances of failure were high. The modern approach to making it easier to clear a snorkel involves a one-way valve positioned so that the diver does not have to work as hard as would be required to blow all the water from the tube. These valves can help, but good technique make them unnecessary. For example, if a diver, while ascending, tilts the head back and then exhales a small amount of air from the lungs just before reaching the surface, the snorkel will virtually clear itself. Corrugations or uneven surfaces on the outside of the snorkel are fine, especially if they allow the mouthpiece to fall out of the way. The internal bore of the snorkel must be smooth, however. This reduces the effort of moving gas through it and also will prevent trapping of water. Foldable snorkels may be good for pocket storage, which is great for divers who don't want to carry it otherwise, but one needs to determine that they function well enough when in actual use. High visibility colors also offer a safety benefit, as for all diving equipment. High visibility snorkels are not as effective as a fluorescent hood or suit, but it's still a good idea. So how about snorkeling and freediving? Freediving differs from snorkeling basically by its intent. This means that snorkeling is casual, whereas freediving is more intentional and even extreme. Competitive freedivers would not use snorkels because of the added drag and additional dead space. Other freedivers might use them, however, and this raises the question of whether water would enter the mouth more easily if the person blacks out on the way to the surface. As is often the case in the absence of information, while there are lots of opinions, there are few facts to support either position. It does seem that there's a period immediately after blackout when sufficient muscle tone is preserved to prevent water entry into a normally closed mouth. Getting the person to the surface quickly and keeping the airway clear is often sufficient for a rapid recovery. An open mouth holding a snorkel filled with water could lead to faster water entry, but it's a difficult question to test. It might be wise for freedivers to avoid snorkels, but this position is offered with very little evidence to support it. More important is to avoid excessive voluntary hyperventilation. In other words, taking repetitive deep breaths to lower carbon dioxide in the body and delay the point where there's an unavoidable urge to breathe. Hyperventilating even 2 or 3 times may increase the chances of a blackout. So, how about the final snorkel choice? Ultimately, the choice of whether to carry a snorkel and which one to carry is up to the individual. It is convenient not to have one that gets in the way all the time, but it's also great to have one when the need arises. Options for managing gas supply and emergencies are always important, and it's nice to have a snorkel on the day that the dolphins choose to swim with you after the dive. I personally favor having a snorkel, typically a more compact version that's easy to wear and carry as the situation demands.